Welcome to the eCom Collab Club podcast, where e-commerce founders and operators share the mistakes that drained their cash, wasted their time, and nearly broke their brains, so you could avoid that pain.
Fucking great. No one ever listens to me.
Hosted by Adam Pearce, co-founder of the eCom Collab Club, and Blend Commerce, the Shopify CRO agency.
Finula Crowe, founder of New Day Originals. What is on your mind this Monday afternoon?
Well, two things. First thing is, believe it or not, the crisis in the Middle East is having a massive impact on my business right now. So that is very, very difficult and challenging. It's thrown up a lot of challenges in that half of our spring summer collection is sitting in Delhi. So that is pretty scary for me, considering it's my first big forward orders season. And I've got dozens of stockists very eager to get their collections in store. So that's one thing. And really, you can do a lot about it, but also you can do a lot about it and not change the outcome because it's about a war. So that's a first for me. And then the second thing is we've kind of been going through a fairly big rebrand. So we're 5 years in and we're going through a rebrand. And my creative director agency came back with my response to brief today. And it was the most, oh my God, they just nailed it. And I know we're going to talk about authenticity and things like that today, but it's me. It's like I'm not in the campaign, but it's just been in the middle of all the UAE kind of uncertainty. And my sister lives out there. Then you get something like that and your whole faith is restored and you're it's the roller coaster. So yeah, they're the two things on my mind today.
Two very big things. I mean, look, on this podcast, is, I guess, on more the lighthearted side. I'm not going to even begin to get into the kind of political and ramifications of what is going on in the Middle East. But I think, look, what I do want to press on is, with obviously the rebrand and what's taking place, what sort of sparked you wanting to do that? And has it been a scary process?
It hasn't been scary because I find that very exciting. And it's been a while coming where I could see it's a bit like trying to put clothes on a toddler, but the toddler is now a teenager. And
I like it.
My brand was sort of in its infancy, obviously, 5-year-old brand, and started during lockdown. It's not that the values have changed. They're still there. It's very much about authenticity. It's founder-led. It's sisterhood. It's sustainability. It's I feel your pain. Come and chat to me. But it's also about responding to the environment around us and seeing the needs of the consumer changing, what people wanted out of their fashion or what they were wearing 5 years ago. And we're not trend led, so not confusing it with trends, and what they kind of want to feel now that we're 5 years out of all of that. And, I felt like the brand needed a refresh, and it's so subtle. It's not, it's not that scary. It's very subtle. And I'm just really excited by it. And it's fresh. And it felt like it took me until now to have the confidence to present the brand in this brave new way. And it's just amazing. I said to the creative director from the agency is Clive, if I can say that. I just said to him, he created my logo 5 years ago. And he's worked with me for years and years. And I just said, if you literally, put me as a brand, that's it. And I said, it looks like a Gucci campaign. It's just amazing.
Amazing.
It's got
Can't wait to see
nostalgia. but it's also got kind of current and future in it as well. So
awesome. Well, look, you've hit on a few points there that I want to get into, because look, we've got you on today to talk about personal branding and networking. And like you said there, you've, in terms of your business at Nudo Originals, you've gone through a bit of a change as well in the past few years about what it is, you know, what the focus is, I suppose. And I guess, look, on the personal branding side, I feel like, you know, at the moment, every time I go onto LinkedIn, and it has been the past, you know, probably sort of 12 months, everyone is talking about personal branding, and there's lots of personal branding coaches, blah, 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 blah. With you and your personal brand, was this something you made a conscious decision you were going to go out and do? Or is it something that sort of you've just kind of done and it happened, and it's now being called a personal brand? Sort of where are you on that scale?
oh yeah, never conscious. And I think when you're a small brand, it's an absolute necessity. You are your brand. You're central to it. And in fact, the minute you try, like I've often thought, oh, I want to look a bit slicker. And like if you go to my Instagram right now and you look at the last 9 posts, I'm out in Delhi showing people a factory. I'm running around Jaipur. I think we've had 150,000 views of that. I'm running around Jaipur. I'm showing the good, the bad, the ugly, never conscious. And here's the thing, you know, I really believe that founder-led brands who are working within the business, it's our trump card. It's the thing that a big national brand, they've got all the advantage with scale, you know, being able to get a better production price. I'm obviously in clothing, but they cannot mimic personal branding. So it's the ace up our sleeves every single time. But it does have to be authentic. And I think if you're starting a brand and you don't like being front and center, I just really don't know if you should start a brand at all. I think it's absolutely 100% necessary.
Yeah.
You know, until such time as maybe you've so much resource and you're building teams. But then the challenge is, how do I hang on to that founder-led spirit on which my brand was built? And we've got loads of examples of that. And I think, you know, just particularly for me, I'm trying to be an accessible, luxury, accessible, sustainable brand for women, you know, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I met a woman on Saturday at an in-store activation in Wokingham, and she was 80, you know, so buying my stuff. So I would really worry about someone who thinks they want to start a business and think that they can hide behind their grid, or I just don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think on that point, we've talked about this quite a few times at Ecom Collab Club about whether you can start a business for purely profit or there's got to be some form of passion in there. And to me, you know, that's why I kind of think, you know, because look, like, you know, with me, I've got a big gob on me. I kind of say what I feel, particularly on LinkedIn, but try and do it in a way that's valuable, I hope. But what gets me, I think, sometimes is that when people don't do that, for me, I do kind of question, well, if they're not prepared to kind of put their neck and reputation on the line for the business they've created, does that maybe say something about the business? That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think, you know, I don't know whose campaign it was. Maybe it was a political campaign, or maybe I don't know, but it was your opinion matters. And I think the more we're kind of living in this virtual world where our networks are, as I said, I had 150,000 views and I don't know, over 1,000 comments or something on that particular post. And it just shows you, and I'm a small brand, and it just shows you how important your personal brand is. How many people, that's a tsunami of people hearing what I think of Jaipur, you know, or what I think of producing in India. So, you know, you can really make an impression. You can make a bad one and a good one. You can be cancelled. I hate that terminology. But, you know, it really is interesting. And I think it's so easy to be called out the minute you stray away from being authentic. And like the other day, everybody was slagging off Demi Moore, you know, because she's so very thin. And I actually took probably the least popular opinion, and I sort of stuck up for her. And, you know, of course, you're going to get whiplash from that, but you have to be strong in your conviction, and you've got to explain your position. And you can't, a bit like the whole, I won't talk about the politician, but you can't keep changing your mind when someone disagrees with you. I mean, if someone convinces me that my argument has holes and that maybe I'm not seeing all perspectives of the argument, I'll be the first to say, oh yeah, now that you say that, yeah, you're probably right. But like, that's magnified on the internet. Yeah. So it's even bigger. And again, you know, I try not to be, I'm a bit like you as well. Like, I just say it how it is. And sometimes it gets me into trouble, but it's actually part of my personal brand. If I'm in a room with 20 girls and someone says something contentious, it's not like I'm any big, amazing person, but it's like everybody looks for me to say something first, because that is part of my brand. I'm very honest, you know, and people say she doesn't mince her words. It doesn't mean I'm disrespectful. It just means that I'll just say it how it is. And you can
exactly. But I think it's weird, isn't it? In the way that, you know, look, everyone talks about the business now. You've got to have a niche, you know, you've got to really drill down to, you know, who you're for. And I think businesses are very much prepared to do that, but people are not prepared to do that with their own personal brand. And I kind of think, you know, that for me is about, you know, look, you are going to be Marmite. Listen, some people are going to love you, some are going to hate you. And you kind of need that. I think you kind of need to have some sort of polarity in the stuff that you put out there, because especially at the moment, you know, look, LinkedIn is my, you know, drug of choice when it comes to my personal brand. But I think ultimately on there, it is full of AI. It is full of utter dross of people with not really an opinion either way. And if you have an opinion, some people are going to really like it or really dislike it, but ultimately it does what it should do. I wanted to ask you though about the flip side though. So let's say, for example, you know, with you, obviously you talked there about sourcing some of your product in India. Have you had any negative comments about you doing that anyway for any reason? And if so, have you ever had to kind of like deal with that or talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, no matter where you go to manufacturing is really tough. India is a very tough, and I think we've chatted before, a very tough culture to navigate. So they speak good English for the most part. I've actually started to be really good at understanding what they're talking about in context when I'm in the room, and that's really helpful. But I've had some really, really negative times very recently, as some of my ex-India partners have seen my brand grow, and certainly it is growing. I've had some really tricky things happen to me, including extortion.
Oh,
so it's scary, I'd say, no matter where you manufacture. You know, you could be doing it in China, you could do it in the UK and get slagged off. But do I get beaten up because I manufacture in India? Now and again, you'll have someone say, well, why are you not making in Great Britain? And I have to say, would you be prepared to pay £400 for this dress if I were to make in Great Britain? So you
Absolutely.
get a little bit of that. And certainly I've had the negative side of like having gone quite viral with that video. I've had to delete some comments and stuff like that and just address some stuff. Some of it is actually people who live in India and they don't like the way I've presented their country. One comment it was really quite interesting because I just had a small clip. I mean, India is known for really chaotic traffic. I mean, you cannot cross the road in India. And I just had a clip of the traffic and said, you know, the usual chaos, but you get used to it and you actually start enjoying it almost. And someone said, you come to our country and you use all our artisans, and then, you know, you're just talking about the negative and the traffic. And I just said, have you not seen the whole video? Like, I'm actually talking about how beautiful your country is.
I'm promoting it, yeah.
Yeah, so you do get a little bit of that, but I am quite lucky. Like, I don't really get trolled. I don't really get a lot of negative comments, even when I'm a bit controversial, and I'm very much myself. All my posts are about me, you know, about the brand, but everybody knows I am the brand. And now and again, like I have this post in my mind to call out a certain celebrity presenter who presents a fashion segment on national television. And, you know, everybody's hanging on to her every word. Well, she has her own personal stylist. And I'm kind of thinking, how do I kind of, I don't want to be a cow, but it's like, you're kind of pulling the wool over women's eyes, presenting a segment on television when you actually don't even dress yourself. So, you know, just stuff like that. You just kind of, you wonder, is it worth the hassle? But then you think, no, it's me. Like, if I see something that's wrong in the world, I'll talk about it.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think, you know, you're trying to attract people to you and your business who share those same thoughts and opinions and feelings, isn't it? And I mean, look, the one you kind of mentioned a couple of sort of examples there, but have you ever had a piece of content that you've posted or a post that you've done, whatever platform it might be, and it's had a really unexpected response, either positive or negative, really?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like, I feel that anything that is behind the scenes, like when you show the things that go wrong, that's probably the most viral content and the most engaging content. And I think, you know, one of the reasons, if you look at my Instagram, I'm punching above my weight, is because nearly every post is authentic. And I struggle, you know, I struggle to even put up, and it'll be going up soon, my beautiful photography, because it doesn't get great engagement, you know, and I need to bring that into it because I am a clothing brand after all. But anything that kind of says, you know, not maudlin stuff, but just kind of says, you know, this is a typical day in my life. And like, if you go to my LinkedIn or my Instagram, the post I put up yesterday, Sunday, for International Women's Day, I'd been in Wokingham at my first in-store launch of a stockist. And at the very end of it, I'm wheeling out my suitcase that I brought her stock in. And that's the authenticity. You know, it's like, you know, I don't have assistants running around and I don't have beautiful boxes arriving. You know, we all just dug into my suitcase and got the stuff steamed and out. That's kind of sisterhood, and that's a big thing. And I think the other thing is, one of the things that's beautiful about communities, be they offline, like Ecom Collab, and online, is you do find your own tribe. You know, you find if you're authentic and outspoken and you're showing the warts and all, you find people who appreciate that about a brand. But you'll have people who look at my content and they wouldn't dream of buying something from me because, you know, they prefer beige, put together, beautiful, you know, like they want to be seen, you know, they want to be seen as associating with a brand that is perfect. They're probably never going to buy my stuff. So, so you kind of find your own tribe I found genuine customers from day one being myself.
Yeah. But I heard this phrase the other day, and someone was talking about kind of, you know, content and posts that you either want to sell or repel. And I actually really like that because ultimately, you know, look, whether it's you with your brand or whether it is, you know, ultimately me with my business, is that I want the people who are attracted to what I like or what I do to buy. And if they're not interested and they're not for me, then I want them to walk away. I don't want to have, you know, a big following of people that are just somewhere in between. I suppose that's the same for you, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I spoke before. We were talking about performance marketing or something like that, or meta advertising, and I said that, and it's a necessary evil, but and I don't do a lot of it, by the way. So if anybody's listening and wants to sell that service to me, I'm not a big believer, and I'll tell you why. Because my returns rate spikes up when I've got online ads going out, because people haven't taken the time to understand me and understand the brand. They're just buying a dress or a blouse, or this is one of mine, by the way. They're just buying a piece of clothing. They're not buying Finn's 3 trips to India in the last 6 months, recutting bits of the fabric and stuff because it's not quite right. They haven't bought in to my personal brand. They haven't bought into my journey. They haven't bought into my values. They've just bought a dress. So they're obviously, they didn't love it when they got it, but they also, a lot of people love my stuff because they love my story and they love where it's come from. They appreciate its uniqueness in the journey that it took to get it there. And so the minute I do like a Facebook campaign, returns spike. They go from like 15%, because something didn't fit properly, to like 40+% overnight.
That's really interesting. I think that's a really good thing to mention here, because ultimately, when people talk about having a personal brand and networking, which we're going to move on to in a second, I think we are wired, aren't we, to kind of think about, look, what does it mean from a pounds and pence or dollars and cents perspective? And I think that kind of, for me, that's a really good example, because you've seen that when obviously that you don't include people in the funnel of knowing about you, that actually it does end up costing you, because ultimately it just does become another brand. Whereas, like you say, with you and them getting to know you, whether that be through your socials and your personal brand and all the stuff on the site, it's different. So that's really good. I mean, you talked about the behind the scenes stuff, and I guess the stuff that did work. Is there any stuff over the years that have gone by where you've gone, look, I tried doing this thing and it completely flopped, and I just would never do that kind of thing again?
No, I mean, I don't. It's all learning, isn't it? Like, as I said, I don't do a lot of paid advertising. I also, I feel there's an expectation to look glossier, like on my gram, now that I'm represented by so many beautiful independent boutiques and we're national, but I kind of feel there's nothing that like really backfired, but sometimes I put a load of effort into a beautiful photo shoot and showing, oh, look at this and look at how slick this is and look at how gorgeous. And it'll be like, and they're kind of the things I probably don't enjoy as much as in posting, and the girl who put together Emerald from the Social Point put together my recent online beautiful slicky stuff, and she's like, when are you going to share that video? And I'm like, I don't know. I almost hesitate before I share something that's very polished. And so the campaign that we just put together with my lovely creative director friend Chris, it's so authentic. I can't wait to share it, because even though it's very kind of slick and it's very, it's based on the photo shoot I did there a few weeks ago in West London, but it's kind of gritty like me. It's kind of like, might draw a few kind of negative comments, but then they'll think about it and think, yeah, that's actually cool. We were discussing today whether fag packets should be in it or not. And so that'll just give you an idea. We're kind of going back to kind of the late 60s, boho, free-spirited London, sort of Carnaby Street in the creative.
Awesome.
And I can't wait to share that, because I think it's entertaining.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And here's the thing, actually, we always talk about, it's either got to be educational, entertaining, or inspirational. And it's entertaining. Like, if you look at the content, it entertains. It brings you back to, you know, a time that either you've seen on telly or your parents have lived through it and talked to you about it. Or I was born in 69, so, you know, I don't remember the 60s, but, you know, not long after it. So yeah, so that I'm happy. And I think that's why I'm so happy with the direction we've taken the brand in, because it does encapsulate the true values. I think when you put overly slicky stuff up in front of people, it's just wallpaper. It doesn't elicit the response that you expect. So less of that.
I mean, look, there's probably quite a few people listening who, if they looked at their, you know, feeds at the moment, it probably is all quite polished and quite slick. What would you say to them if they're feeling a bit fearful of maybe going against that grain? What would be your, I guess, words of encouragement to them?
You know, I would say, it sounds really a bit tweed, but I would say just do it. Just do it once. You know, I do kind of mentor a number of female founders for free. Not, you know, I was mentioned before, someone can message me and I'll say, yeah, I'll do an hour on the phone with you and we'll chat about things. And I know a couple of them who, there's one, and she's got the most beautiful brand. And I sat down with her for about 3 hours a couple of months ago and just said, what's missing is you. You know, you're gorgeous. I met her in real life and I thought she was going to be weird or something, that she's never on her Instagram. And she seemed lovely just over messages. And I thought, oh, I wonder what she's going to be like. Oh my God, she's the most lovely person. And she was talking about her brand to me in the restaurant. And I was just looking at her going, but that's it. Like, I could have just filmed you right now. That's what you need to put on your Instagram. Because I do get contacted because people can see all the engagement. And I'm like, you've got to kind of go through a journey of caring less about what people think of you. And when I started out, I was petrified of what if the bully I went to school with, who used to bully me and say I was ugly or something, what if she sees it? And what if she thinks I'm a nonce for doing this? And then, in fact, I actually think I nearly set out, I'd say there's an early post of me going, I wish I cared less about what people think of me. And actually, I wasn't consciously measuring it. Now I've gotten to a point where it's like, look, I'm here on a podcast with you, just probably talking shit. And, you know, like, I haven't measured it. I haven't had a mentor saying, now you've done this, so you're great. And now you just do a bit more. I just got 5 years later to a point where, do you know what? I need to sell. And I know it works, you know? Authenticity sells. And as I said, I feel sorry for big national brands because they can't do that.
Oh, yeah.
And then they go out and they get influencers who can't really do that either. And people are even more cynical that they spent like 10 grand.
Absolutely.
XYZ to front their brand or front their campaign.
You know, and I think on that point, you know, you see like all these big sort of conglomerates buying D2C brands up. And it never works out because they don't understand that deeper level of relationship that these D2C brands have had in comparison to maybe, you know, like working with a Procter and Gamble or Unilever, you know, who have purchased some of these, like particularly beauty brands recently. They sort of start to lose that appeal that they had before. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And I think I want to move the conversation on now to talk about networking, because we talked a bit about the personal brand side of things, but networking is the other topic for today. And for me personally, you might find this weird, but I actually still find it quite difficult to go to networking events, even though that I run one. And I still sometimes do feel awkward about networking. When you walk into a room of people you don't know, like what's the tactic or what's going through your mind?
It's so funny because I remember my first e-com collab calamity. I don't know if you remember, I think you were there. I only went to the lunch part and I actually didn't even know there was a preceding, but someone, for some reason, invited me to the lunch or something. And I just went straight to the lunch. And then you were like, oh yeah, we were all at eCom Collab Club earlier. And I was like, what was that? But I remember walking up to that table and it was in the back of a restaurant. And I walked up and you were all drinking Lucky Saint. But I walked up and I was a little bit late, and you were all sitting around the tables, about 12, 14, 16, something like
I
that.
remember.
And I went up and I said, "Oh, sorry." I said, "I think I got the wrong, I'm just in the wrong place." And you or someone said, "Oh, are you at the Ecom Collab Club?" And I went, "Yeah, I think so." That particular day, it was all men. And I sat down with you, and I remember coming back home, and my husband asked me later, how was it, or whatever the case may be. And I said, "Oh my God, it was so brilliant to just, shut the laptop on whatever things I go down rabbit holes with that are certainly not anything to do with ecom collaborating." And it was like I put on kind of different lenses for the day. And it was really refreshing. Of course, everyone was lovely, and nobody, like, I came away with some really great advice on the spot. I came away with some really good contacts, people with whom I later worked. And like, I said, Chris Wiggins, who's does some of my, I call him the finance guy, but he's a merchandiser by trade, ex-John Lewis, like a bloody heavy hitter in the industry. And suddenly he's letting me convince him to help me. But, that I would never, if somebody said, "Okay, we want you to go to a restaurant, and in the back of the restaurant, there's going to be 14 guys sitting down, and, you're going to join them," and I'd never have gone. And how lucky was it that I hadn't a clue? I just saw something in my diary, saw the address, and went, right, I need to get to this. And yeah, I was living in Notting Hill at the time, so I wasn't very far from there. But, it was kind of one of those seismic moments. And suddenly it was like getting my cataracts done. Like suddenly, my vision was clearer. And, like I've been to several of them now. I've missed a few, here and there, just with my travel and that. But it was really good. And I still love going into them. And always, I go into them quite a lot. I've met some great female founders in there. And actually, a couple of ladies who work for brands, big brands, like there was a lovely lady from the Hoover Company, Henry.
Oh, yeah. Catherine. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, she's working for a big brand, but she was a great person to meet. Then a number of people, I'm not saying, because there have to be women there, but it obviously wasn't as bad as I thought. There were a lot more women at it. And then a bunch of my network, because I'm in a little network called Female Fashion Founders, and we chat to each other. We're like helpline, help, my stock hasn't arrived, and somebody will be at the other end of the phone so that you can cry and whatever. But they came along to one as well. And for them, they were like, we went off and had lunch after, and they were like a bit overwhelmed, but, still thinking, wow, that's great to have known that. And it's great to know that that's there for when I'm, building my tech stack, really, I suppose, without scaring anyone, because we need a tech stack. I'm at the size now where I am actively thinking, what do I need to plug in to my platform? But it's not techie either. I love the format. I love the panels. So, I would say, look, it is a bit of a just do it. Don't overthink it. Any of my colleagues from small businesses who've come along have really enjoyed it. And they've all met at least one person that has been helpful to them.
What do you think about people that might be listening and saying, well, look, I don't want to go to a networking event and be sold to, and maybe people that go, well, look, what am I going to give? If people are kind of sort of thinking with that sort of mentality, what would you say to them?
Like, I would say that if you're going to look at, your potential solution providers as people who sell to you, you're not talking to the right people. I've had post those events, you meet people where we do the table thing in the middle, and we're having our coffee at the break or whatever. And, you'll meet someone who says, oh, I heard you on the panel, or, what do you do? And they'll say, they don't go, well, I've got a platform that can help you with this. They kind of go, oh, right. So, oh, you're going into wholesale. Yeah. So how are you finding that? And I'd say, oh, gee, it's quite hard now because now I need a kind of a CRM platform that I can sort of put all my photos in there and I can show them where, oh, right. Okay. Well, I can hop on a call with you because I know, I have something like that. Or so it's not a hard sell. And I would say that, if you're not having those conversations and you're not even having those little Zooms post event, you're not learning. You can say no. Like I've had a couple of providers say to me, hey, listen, Finn, it doesn't sound like we're for you just yet because, you've only, a couple of hundred transactions a month or a week or whatever it is. But how about we talk? And do you want to sign up to our updates or our LinkedIn or whatever way they share great information? And the thing about it is tech companies and solution providers, they've become so good at creating content that, that one pager or that white paper that you might get time to just read, when you're on the train can actually really help you think about maybe a problem you have that nobody else has encountered. You haven't been able to get help on it from any of your network. And suddenly you're like, oh yeah, I just read that white paper about, using AI to generate feedback, whatever it is.
Yep.
That's quite handy. So and the other thing is, I think I as a woman am very comfortable going into the female networking events. I love it. I'm a woman's woman. I have a dress or a clothing brand and make more than dresses. I love that. And I'm comfortable. But I think we all know that you don't grow if you don't if you're not uncomfortable, you've got to feel a little uncomfortable. But that particular, the e-com, I love the format because, you kind of meet all sorts of people. You meet colleagues, small brands trying to grow. You meet people who've solved technology problems for brands like yours. Honestly, I've probably had maybe 3 technology providers. I've done follow-up calls and they've said, Finn, we're probably not right for you for whatever reason, but, let's keep in touch. And then I'll meet them, at the next thing. They'll say, oh, did you call that company? I suggest it might be better for you because they've got a freeware or they've got something that's less expensive than us. And, it's what you make of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a lovely place. I like sitting in the movies, not at the movies.
I feel like I should be paying you, Finn, for this podcast because you've really bigged this up, but it's great. But I think, look, what I would say is my perspective on this is, look, a lot of the ecom community, I think, that regardless of what event you go to, it very much is that mentality, like you say, of people genuinely do want to try and help. And I love that. And one thing I want to ask you about it, because it came to as you were talking, I was at a dinner a few weeks ago and I was talking to, but I don't give too much away here. Let's say someone from a D2C food brand. And I said to them, look, do you happen to go to other networking events where your competitors are? And she turned around to me and said, why the hell would I go where my competitors are? And I was like, well, is it, can you not sort of, share learnings? Do you infer things? Well, that seems the most ridiculous thing in the world. And it's weird for me because, some of my competitors, like Nathan, one of my co-hosts at Ecom Collab Club, we do it all the time. Is that what do what do you think on that? Would you go to network events where people compete with are there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing about it is though, I'm on I'm in a mostly virtual network called Buy Women Built. And it is, as you can imagine, it's women-led product companies. And, it's amazing because I'd be flattering myself if I said they were my competitors because some of them are really well-established brands. But it's so amazing because I'll put, what's gorgeous about the platform is you can put in something like my stuff was stuck in customs there a couple of days ago, so I was putting something in there. I really needed a pattern cutter at very short notice there before Christmas. And I put something in and oh my God, this female founder, actually the founder of 11 Loves, she replied in the thread, and I was like, she's replying to me? Is she not threatened by me, like giving me her pattern cutter? It's like, and she just DM'd me and she said, oh, look, I really recommend Annabelle. She's been great helping us. She's reasonable. And I thought, oh, wow. So it's that thing of, yes, she's grown. She's got 110,000 followers on Instagram. She's obviously a really big, successful brand, but she doesn't feel threatened by me. And I certainly wouldn't feel threatened by her. So I actually think, particularly within the female space, but I think, people tend to be, and I think I said it in my International Women's Day post yesterday. I said, when we put competitiveness aside, we are invincible, because we are all women. And when we help each other, for example, my stockists could be considered now to be my competitors. So I could behave in such a way where, I'm holding back on stock that I know is selling really well, because already they're messaging me going, could I get more of this? Because this looks great. And I'm like, normally brands are like, oh no, but I want to keep this and sell it myself. And I'm like, yeah. And I just think it's amazing. So I must say, I think you can learn a lot from your competitors. And also, how do you define your competitor? Like, do I go into me and M and think, that they're going to feel threatened by me if I'm inside in their shop, or would I just feel hugely flattered if they were looking at my designs? And I think, it's, one of the things as well, particularly in the female founded thing, we all relate to what it has taken to get us to whatever stage we're at, whether that's we just launched our website or we're 15 years in and we're turning over several million and we're stocked in Selfridges. We all can go back to where we were in the beginning. So I think female founded companies, I just don't think we feel like we're competitors.
Love it. Finn, we've got a question actually from a fantastic lady called Mekla, who actually I think first met at a networking event, funnily enough. So she's got quite a long question. I'm going to read this out. So she said, a couple of interrelated questions. Did you find it difficult to put yourself out there in the beginning? Not just about the vulnerability, how people react, but the amount of work and energy to consistently create and put out content takes so much time and energy. What keeps you going? Is it just a matter of discipline, especially if someone is an introvert? How do they build a personal brand in today's oversaturated online ecosystem?
So I think I said hi, Michaela. I think I said in the beginning, I actually had almost forgotten that one of my first posts was about how self-conscious I felt and how I was so afraid that people, plural, wouldn't like me, or people would think I was, an idiot or whatever. And actually, one of the greatest things I've gotten out of my business is it's almost like I almost forgot I could never ride a bike. There was a stage in my life where I couldn't drive a car. Now it's like, you automatically drive a car. And I actually think one of the best things I've gotten out of my business is I still care, but I care a lot less about these unknown strangers that I've made up mostly in my head. I mean, a girl I went to school with who pulled my hair when I was 11, she couldn't give a damn who I am or where I am. So you make up these characters. And I would say, ask yourself, when you're hesitating to put out some content where you're part of that, you're part of your brand. So ask yourself who you're afraid of. Because sometimes they're these personas made up in your head. They're not even real people. And so that's one thing. And if they are real and they do exist, I think a lot of the time these people are you just got to feel sorry for them, that they're just sad and can't conduct themselves properly. The keyboard warriors, right? We all know who they are. I think the other thing is, when you say about time and energy to put out content, the best content is the authentic stuff that takes 2 seconds to make. And that is kind of hard to put out sometimes because it's the personal, will they judge me because my roast beef dinner looks a bit, burnt? I did burn the custard yesterday. The beef was good though.
Oh dear.
and it's like, usually that is the best content to put out. It's the stuff that took you 2 seconds to make, but maybe says a lot more about you. And I was saying earlier already, that's the content that gets most of it. So like when I'm in India, I just film everything. I film the dinner, the cat that just passed me, a little selfie with one of the guys in factory or whatever. That's the most compelling content. And I just mush it together. No time. Throw it into the reels. Try and make it 20 seconds or smaller. I'm always like, and I'm not very good with the editing and stuff like that. And just throw it out there, and it can be the best content that you possibly make. And then how do you keep going? I think the word that I have felt more than ever this season, as we grow from this to 5 times growth in a matter of months financially, is belief. And that is, and I'm not being woo-woo because I'm the most un-woo-woo person, but it's self-belief, and it's also identifying the people who believe in you. So the people who, like my creative director, he ain't going to see a penny for another couple of months, but he believes in me. And we talked about that today. Just look for the people who believe in you and make sure you're surrounded by them and you're engaging with them. That is what keeps me going, and a hell of a lot of coffee.
I love it. And look, Finn, I actually had some questions that I was going to try and get those kind of answers for you. And look, Mecla's done the job. So brilliant stuff. And what a brilliant way to end. And thank you so much for being on with us.
Cool.
Look, if people obviously want to find out more about New Day, where should they go to? And secondly, if they want to see you in action in terms of the content you post, where should they go as well?
So obviously we're online, newdayoriginals.co.uk. We're just about to update an awful lot of our website. None of our new collections there. Our new campaign's not there. But can I just say, particularly if you're a female entrepreneur or you're a guy with a wife, girlfriend, mother, sister, I am doing a summer residency in Notting Hill. It's my first immersive experience in my own retail environment. And I'm doing that from the 28th of April to the 5th of May. So if you want to come and join us, we'll be doing lots of amazing things. And it's really about the journey rather than here's a dress, try a dress, buy a dress. I want to really show people the journey of the brand, the values behind the brand, the people who make the clothing. So it's going to kind of be a really nice place to visit. So come and visit me.
Fantastic. And Finn, we'll make sure that we put some information out on the eCom Collab Club channel about that, and then our newsletter as well. So make sure we put that out there too. So look, Finn, thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in.
And eCom Collab Club. I'll be at the next one. What date is the next one?
The next one is, depending on when you're listening, Wednesday, the 11th of March. Which may or may not have gone, depending when you listen to this. If you're watching it live, obviously, with a couple of days left, I think there are 5 or 6 tickets left. And then after that, we are then back on the second Wednesday of each month for the rest of the year.
Oh, I'll see you Wednesday.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Right. Cheers, Finn.
Okay.
And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you've liked what you're listening to today, do give us a like or a follow on the listening platform of your choice. And we'll see you again soon on the eCom Collab Club podcast. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the eCom Collab Club podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and join our community at ecomcollabclub.com/community.